not incorporated, but they were taken into consideration. But I do want to, and I can share this with you electronically, that site is a brownfield. I did get a document dump from the DEP that it took 3 hours to download, so I can send you that somehow, or they can send it to you uniquely like they provided for me. But I beg you, I request, I don't have the authority to do this as a single lawmaker or senator, but you have the authority as local government to put into your zoning that regardless of zone, that you can require remediation of any contamination prior to any development. East Vincent Township actually has that in their zoning for residential development, that's a norm, because if it's a contaminated site, building housing on it is challenging and almost near illegal, although there have been instances where it's been skirted. I think that incorporating that is imperative to not just the ecosystem, but the amount of coal ash that is down at that site is unknown, and it is not a small amount. And if you're not aware of coal ash or coal slurries levels of radioactivity, it's quite high. It's very high. The other thing is, I did get confirmation that it was a coal-fired power plant, then there was an oil component to it, and before it was closed, it actually was a gas-fired power plant. So there are 3 different types of energy, which means there's 3 different types of waste that were either held, processed, stored on that site. I did add up the acreage after I had my meeting last week with the township. I think that the woman who spoke before, who said to put a 20-acre maximum, is absolutely correct in that there's nothing in the law or any court case that says you have to provide for a massive hyperscale data center. I think that if a developer came in and is doing what is happening in the Northeast, buying up thousands of acres of property for a lot of money, that down there, Pico already owns almost over 100 acres if you combine their parcels together. So if it's 1 acre per megawatt, that's 100 megawatts. Pennhurst tried to squeeze 590 megawatts on 120 acres. So I think reconsidering your size and that scalability, because there's a 7 megawatt data center, GS Kings campus, that you all drive by on 422. I'm not saying there aren't things to be protected from that, but 7 megawatts is not a hyperscale data center. So if you have to provide for all uses, then prohibiting a large-scale one or requiring it to not exceed 20 acres is perfectly rational and would be protective for your residents. And the other thing I just want to state, because there's a lot of lingo that goes around across my parts of 3 counties and many municipalities, and then sometimes outside of my district on the same issue, is that this whole thing about prohibition of a use, the land use, I think it's important for the public to know that the reason that they have to go through a conditional use process is because you cannot just outright ban in your zoning a use. So the conditional use process allows the applicant to present his case in chief to the Board of Supervisors, and it is on the applicant to provide the burden of proof that the harm from whatever is desired to be developed on that property does not leave the property line. Does not leave the property line. In Western Pennsylvania, where I grew up in tract land, where they have plenty more industrial development than we've all ever seen. If you can't contain the harm and the impacts at the property line, then the municipality does legally have the right to prohibit that application or deny that. You have to actually go through conditional use, because even in East Vincent, it was some of the veterans from the Veterans Center that was, potentially living next to a 590 megawatt data center 400 feet from where they are. I'm sure you can all imagine a nightmare of you make it to your retirement and that's what's going to be built out your window. They didn't understand why the township couldn't just say no, and why are we doing this whole hearing process. And I think the public needs to understand under current law, prohibiting the use, you can't, but doing through conditional use and requiring these burdens of proof. There are over 4,000 data centers in America right now. Not all of them are hyperscale, some are. And I have yet to have any developer, any data center owner, any property owner, any gadget of like the electronics that go with these facilities show me the harmless data center. So we have 4,000 some data centers in America. Someone should be able to take us all on a tour to the one that doesn't emit pollutants, the one that doesn't make harmful health noise pollution, right? And the one that doesn't pollute and use up all the water. Where is that data center?
Yeah.
What you're being asked to do, and I'm not saying what you're being asked to do is fair. The state has failed you. And I'm here as a state senator saying that. I will fight till the end. I have no problem doing that. That's my job. But you all have this very unique legal authority that at the local level, you are tasked through the municipal planning code making decisions that are in the best interest of the public. Not a data center. And the other thing I had an epiphany waiting in line is the resident prior spoke about the utility district. Someone had messaged me earlier today and said, is this weird they have a utility district or a zoned area? And I'm like, well, every municipality sometimes names things differently. It just depends. We have industrial mixed use in East Vincent. There's always some unique, title. I've never heard of a utility district, but I do have a concern after hearing the public utility part that you do have it listed in the ordinance describing it as a public use. I would respectfully request that you remove that. I mean, I have a bill that prohibits making data centers public utilities, but if you just saw what happened on the weekend with Virginia data centers, what did they do? Because it was so hot. They were allowed by the federal government, which we all can override, right, to use their generators for their sole power source so that stress was taken off the grid.
That's crazy.
So that we could all run our air conditioners because we allowed data center out here for 15 years to be built in our state. So what does that mean? That means that they could, in theory, be deemed a public utility if they are providing power back to the power grid that does serve the public or taking stress off of it. So I do think removing that section, I forget what page it's on, or that mention would be just legally a good idea so that you're not implying something that you didn't mean to imply and it's referenced in something later on down the way that, well, some municipalities say that we're a public utility or we're a form of one, and there are big tech billionaire bros that really do want this to be considered another metered utility. They're quoted saying that. So I would think that, and I don't know if you can rename your utility district, but that would be lovely because that makes me nervous too. But I'm not an eminent domain person, but I've heard this come up at other data center hearings, specifically in Limerick, about if data centers, just so the public is aware, any revenue that is alleged by an applicant, even though you don't have one, this is why this matters to you, is that if a data center is deemed a public utility, they pay no taxes to you locally or the school district. Oh. It all goes to the state of Pennsylvania.
If I may, Senator, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. In order for them to be a public utility, they have to go through this process with the state
to get a certificate of convenience from the Public Utility
Commission. So we cannot, as a township, deem them a public utility. That has
but the way you wrote this implies it. In that
in order for them to have the power of eminent domain, they have to get that from the state, right?
They have to get a certificate of convenience, but you have to remember that where this could be proposed.